Erev Tov, everybody. Thanks for joining. Good to have our Parsha regulars together. We're going to keep, in addition to starting late, we're going to keep class our learning a little bit shorter tonight. And whatever way, trying to orient our hearts and dedicate our learning and our activities to refuah shlema, to all the many, many, many wounded in Medinat Israel, in Eretz Israel, and for strength and for resilience and for as fast as speedy resolution as can be, and a safe return home for all those in captivity. We're starting a new cycle of the Torah and trying to continue to return to some of our teachers and study partners of the last few years, and also continue to encounter new teachers. And Rabbanit Dr. Michal Tikochinsky is someone whose halachic writings and Torah leadership I've been aware of in our shared circles over the last number of years, and it's really only in the Zechut of Sefaria that I happened to stumble across her writings on Parashat Shavua and discover that they were available in book form, and to buy that book and be able to share with you some of the teachings in it. Rabbanit Michal Tikochinsky is the head of the Halacha Studies Department at Migdal Oz and the head of the Beit Midrash program at Herzog College. And you get a little glimpse in the introduction that we're going to look at just her own Torah journey and her personality. We've been privileged to host her at the Beit before, and just a deep and wise person who's, again, I think halachic writing demonstrates a real understanding of the challenge of halacha, which is faithful to tradition and responsive to the modern realities in which we live. So it's nice to get a chance to study her Parsha teachings. So I want to share my screen, and we'll look briefly at a section of the Hakdama, of the introduction, and then at one of the two essays that I shared with you in our email before this week. She writes, and as we usually do with Hebrew essays, I'll just try to freestyle translate a little bit. So she writes, the flow of my days is comprised of study and instruction in Gemara and Halacha. The kind of exposition and study of the written Torah is a kind of concealed corner within the midst of that work. In other words, actually learning Torah shebichtav, scripture, kind of on its own, is just like this little corner of the work of learning and teaching Gemara and Halacha. It's there. There's lots of quotes of psukim, but the study of written Torah as such is kind of a concealed part of this endeavor. Starting at the end of 5771, so 2011, I began to write in a kind of a ordered fashion, Divrei Torah on the weekly Parsha, and published them kind of within a network of subscribers and friends of Beit Morashah, where at the time I served as the head of the women's Beit Midrash there. Looking back, the first book which connected me to the world of the study of the weekly Parsha was the book of Rivka Elitzur called Al Avot La'Eladim. The opening story in that book has Avraham Avinu going out to the field and being in awe of nature and wondering who created all of this. That story really sparked something in me, awakened me. I never thought before that the world called out to us to investigate it. The wisdom of Abraham and his kind of deeply thoughtful arguments and disputations with his father Terach taught me the practice, the Torah of argumentation and kind of competition to try to win, and gifted me this standing or place in trying to find the logical flaws in every claim. There's a rigorous kind of practice to argumentation and debate. Abraham's toughness and preparedness to be willing to be burned in the fiery furnace for his faith captured my heart. There's a little play here on the fiery furnace Kivshan, and the capturing Kavshu captured my heart. The legends of our sages, in their plain garb, served for me as a portal into the world of Jewish thought, Jewish philosophy, of revelation, discovery, and inquiry, and planted in me a love of Torah and a kind of fandom for creative exposition. At a slightly older age, around the Shabbat table, so this is her kind of really childhood years. Now, at a slightly older age, her adolescence, let's say, around the Shabbat table, my father of blessed memory would give us riddles from Rashi on the weekly Parsha. These riddles were a unique challenge for me, and they compelled me to really spend time, even during the busyness of the 6 days of the week, preparing for this, or maybe actually during the busyness or the pressure of the, corridor from Friday to Shabbat. I devoted time preparing myself for this kind of these riddles, this competition, or this challenge. And I would read the weekly Parsha from beginning to end with Rashi. The treasury of Rashi really became inscribed and engraved in me, and intermingled at times with the image of my father. In my years in high school, in the Ulpana of Bnei Akiva in Tel Aviv, I had the practice of studying the weekly Parsha every morning, between davening and the beginning of our first class. And over those years, I accumulated questions, thoughts, wonderings. All of them found their way into the words of Torah, which are here in front of you. And alongside them, thoughts and kind of solutions, answers that I collected from the words of the commentaries, the early commentaries. Hi, P. Say goodnight.
I want to tell you something.
Okay. What is it?
Can I use the what blue?
Tooth.
Tooth.
Yes.
Doof. Doof, doof, doof.
And alongside them were my thoughts and solutions that I collected from the early commentaries and the later ones, from my learning of Gemara and Midrash, and from general literature. So just like a little flavor of her own journey. And then she goes on in the second page, really primarily to give acknowledgments and talk about the people who played a role and how the book came to light. But I think it's just a beautiful, almost a model for all of us, kind of to think about what is our Torah journey, what are our influences, what draws us to different dimensions of Torah, and also the personal practice of writing down our Torah questions and our Torah answers. Just feels like a very humble and beautiful introduction to a book. No grand endeavor, no major framework for how to view Torah, but just a real integration between a classical commentary and family, and what draws someone to love Torah and want to learn it. So that's her intro, and we're going to read the first essay. Her essays tend to be a little shorter than Rav Meidan's, in some cases a lot shorter than Rav Meidan's, probably more on the length of the Rav Shai Held's that we've read. So some weeks maybe one, some weeks we may try for two. This week will suffice with the intro and this first one. Vayishlachehu migan Eden, Vayshalachehu migan Eden. And God sent him forth from the Garden of Eden. Twice in our Parashah, the human is chased out and kind of moved from his place. The first is when God casts out Adam from the Garden of Eden after the sin of eating from the Eitz Hadat, from the tree of knowledge. The second time, it's Cain who is chased out once it becomes clear that he's the one who murdered his brother Hevel. Already in the first case, God does not follow through on God's warning. What does it mean? God warns the human, Ki biyom acholcha mimenu mot tamut, that on the day that you eat from this tree, you'll surely die. But in practice, Adam gets a different punishment. Now, right, the Torah says, after that sin of eating from the tree he wasn't supposed to eat from, B'zeata pecha tocha lechem, from by the sweat of your brow you will eat bread. The banishing from Gan Eden is not the punishment, but it is its purpose is to prevent the Adam from eating from the fruit of the tree of life. Meaning it's a inhibition and a distancing and not a punishing, if I'm translating those words right. So understanding, first, she doesn't seem to make more of this idea of the differentiation exactly between the threat of what was going to happen to the Adam and what actually happens, but she points out that from this framework, the banishing from the Garden of Eden wasn't actually the punishment. It was a necessary mechanism to make sure that the punishment of needing to work for one's food, and maybe also in some way preventing from any further eating, if God was somehow giving a second chance, preventing from any further eating from that tree would be preventing that from being possible. We often think about the banishing as a punishment in and of itself, and here she's explaining that it was really a means to the ends of the punishment of needing to work the land and not being able to eat from the tree anymore. The Torah says, and God sent, and I've long noticed the juxtaposition between these two psukim, and I was particularly glad to see her commentary on it. So the Torah says, and the Lord God sent him out from the Garden of Eden to work the land where he had been taken from, and God banished the Adam and caused him to dwell east of the Garden of Eden. And then caused to dwell, not caused the Adam, caused to dwell, God caused to dwell or put into place east of the Garden of Eden, the Kruvim and the revolving fiery sword or the revolving sharp sword to guard the path to the Eitz Chaim, to the tree of life. These verses are not easily understood in their plain sense. It seems like God sends the Adam with this kind of excuse that he should work the land outside of the Garden of Eden. And once the Adam has gone out, God shuts the gates and doesn't let him back in, right? If you read it, Vayishalchehu means sort of just sent him out to do something. God sent him on a mission. Like we say, shlichut. God gave him a mission. Go out of the garden and work the land where you were taken from, meaning the human being was created from earth. So go out to work the earth, which was the source of your creation. And then, once the human went out on this mission, Vayishalchehu, then God chases the human out by virtue of shutting the gates and placing a barricade, preventing the Adam from getting back in. Kodem hu sholeach et Adam u'memane oto l'shlichut. First, God is sending. You're reading again Vayishalachehu as a mission. God is sending forth the Adam, appointing him on a mission. Misuyemet shel avodat adama shebachutz, to work the land outside the garden. And then only afterwards does God kind of engage in this act of banishing, which is not active, but sort of through the action of barring the re-entry. That's her plain sense of the reading of the psukim. Ha'ibn Ezra, koreh et psukim acheret. It's a favorite of Rav Meidan's also. The Ibn Ezra, one of his favorites, reads the psukim a different way. According to him, every shiluach, every sending, is a gerush, is a banishment. So it's not the first sending out wasn't a mission; it was the banishing. It was the expulsion. Kol shiluach hu gerush, just like shiluchin is gerushin in a relationships. Sending someone out of the marital home is tantamount to divorce. And therefore, we can say that God was sending the human out in order to fulfill a particular mission outside the Garden of Eden. Rather, these two verses are kind of in a complementary way describing the expulsion. It's just that if the expulsion is or if the sending forth is the expulsion and punishment for the Adam, then we have to find out, why did God add that punishment on to the original punishment of, eating bread by the sweat of your brow, and understand the meaning of it, right? So if we establish in the previous section that the punishment is, having to work the land and toil over it, so then what is the punishment of the banishing itself? Okay. Chizkuni suggests, Vaishalchehu, and God sent him out, Kidin rotseach bishkaga, like the law of an accidental murderer, because just as or because the Adam had brought death to the world through eating from the fruit of the tree of knowledge, so he still had no knowledge or understanding, or should be at the time that the Adam brought death into the world through eating from the tree of knowledge, he still had no knowledge or understanding. I'll let her explain. Klomar, that is to say, there are two punishments for two different actions. The punishment of death for the eating from the tree of knowledge, that's first, and the expulsion for the fact that the Adam brought onto all other creations the decree of death. Hold on a second. And his judgment is as an accidental murderer who's punished by banishment and sort of wandering. We'll go a little further. These words fit well with the punishment, or this explanation fits well with the punishment of Cain, who was also punished with, when you work the land, you will have to kind of expend great effort on it, and you will wander in the land. So this sort of parallels both the idea of, by the sweat of your brow you will produce bread, and being banished. And so that banishment is a punishment for Adam as the one who brings death into the world, but it's banishment because he's an accidental murderer through that, because at the time that he ate of the tree of knowledge, he didn't have knowledge, and therefore he was not a willful sinner. And so bringing that death into the world was accidental, and therefore the punishment is not death, but exile, so to speak. Yeah, Tati James?
Why is Cain considered an accidental murderer?
That's a good question. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's some Rashi there. I think actually that doesn't help. If I remember right, the Rashi there says he wanted to murder, but he didn't know how to murder, actually, which doesn't make it accidental. So yeah. Bracha, go ahead.
I have to go, but I just want to say I would argue that it was definitely accidental, because there was never before murder, and he may have been angry at his brother, but he may have had no clue that his hitting him was going to cause his death.
Right. Yes, in some way that I think that Rashi could be read in that direction, but also perhaps opposite to it. But that's a very, I think that's a good possible answer to James's question, that, never having seen it before, or necessarily knowing or understanding exactly what he was doing, is the unintentional part. He wanted to cause harm, he wanted to express rage or do violence, but wasn't an intentional murderer because he was the first murderer. So there's certainly something to that. Okay, so the explanation of the Chizkuni is a little different, because the punishment is given. This is when I looked at this the first time, I wasn't sure I got it. The explanation of the Chizkuni is a little bit different, because the punishment is given to those who are murdered, just as it is given to the murderer, right? I guess the idea being death is sort of introduced into the world as a result of Adam, but it harms the victim as well as the murderer. But it's fascinating from the perspective of this suggestion to see in Adam Harishon's action the murder of people who have not yet been born, right? By bringing death into the world, right? So the punishment of Adam for having eaten from the tree is that he brings death into the world, not just upon himself, but for everyone subsequently. And so therefore, it's a punishment which impacts not just sort of the one who does it, but all these future victims. But it's a fascinating idea, because it creates this notion of killing people who have not yet been born. According to the Chizkuni, all of our existence, our entire existence in the world, is this temporary, suspended existence in the shadow of death. life in this world is lived from behind these gates, these locked gates, and outside of the house, right? So the kind of consequence of the exile is that we all are always sort of living in this displaced kind of way. HaToldot Yitzchak eino masbir kach. The commentary, the Toldot Yitzchak, doesn't explain it this way. He explains it the way we explained before, that the sending forth out of the garden, right? Not that it was a banishment, but it was indeed going forth for a mission. Like someone who sends a messenger to do some kind of mission, for some kind of agency, purpose and agency. According to his words, the words of the Toldot Yitzchak, God was kind of tricking is not the right word, but devising something to Adam Harishon and told him that he needed to, you got to go do something important outside the Garden of Eden. The Alshich explains what that mission was. Tzarich lada'at ma ha'avodah hazot. Ha'im lacharosh shelacho? We have to know what was this work that he was being sent for? Was it plowing? For the Alshich, it's clear that the person, that's a rhetorical question. Could it have been plowing? Is that right? Go work the land, from whence you were taken or created. Could that really have been the whole mission of going forth from the garden? Right? For the Alshich, it's clear that the Adam was not sent to work the land in the simple sense of plowing and planting, because God makes it explicit that the Adam needs to work the land that he was taken from, meaning that there's something in the land and not the work specifically. Yesh inyan ba'adama v'lo ba'avodah davka, right? Because it's the land that you were taken from. There's something, right, in the phrase "go work the land that you were taken from." The emphasis is more sort of on the identity of the land than on the work. So there's something in the land that is relevant here. The Alshich suggests that God sent the human to offer an offering to kind of appease God, right? God said, go out and do an avodah, do the way we think about it now more, an act of service. Avodah shebelev is tefillah. The korbanot is called, avodata korbanot. Go do a service out in the land from which you were taken. Appease and atone for your sin. And so God was requesting from the Adam to go forth from the Garden of Eden to a place of atonement, to Har HaMoriah, there where he could appease God. Because it's from the place of his atonement that he was created, or maybe somehow the opposite. It's from the place of his creation that he could find atonement. And after the Adam went forth from the Garden of Eden, then it was just somehow not possible to return. Just like there was a severing once he went out. Just like a woman who's sent forth from her home, in some way her marriage ceases to exist, practically speaking. The giving of the get is only an affirmation and a strengthening to the dissolution of the partnership, and to the ending of the relationship of love and intimacy, right? So there's something in the departure itself where you can never go back. And so God wasn't, closing him out in the form of a punishment as much as sent him out to atone. And then almost it happened in and of itself that once he had gone out, he couldn't return. Obviously, that's feels like a setup in some way, but just sort of describing it almost the way it had to be. The opening chapters of Bereshit, now we sort of move. This also feels very, the Shai held structure. asking the question, looking at some of the commentaries, and then coming to the broader picture and the takeaway. The opening chapters of Bereshit certainly reflect and present to us the foundations of our Jewish theology. Rashi strengthens this when he points to the difficulty or the question about how the Torah could open up with the stories of creation and the stories of our patriarchs, our ancestors. Right? If the Torah was only a book of laws and ethics, it should have started in Parashat Bo, where the commands to us as a nation begin. But the Torah is first and foremost our book of faith, and the fundamental foundations of our philosophy, our Jewish thought, are found there. From these commentaries, it emerges that there are two ways to view the reality of our existence in a post-Edenic world. Two ways to explain the creation of the human and the meaning of the human's existence. According to the first way, we are cast away, distanced, and exiled, dwelling in darkness and tzalmavet, in the shadow of death. In a certain way, the Adam is eternally cast away. Right? This the banishment and the existence outside the Garden of Eden is the ongoing punishment. The very being outside is the punishment, and that's our nature and our identity and our reality. And it is a reality of kind of distance and punishment. He's cast out of the place of truth and always groping to find his way in the darkness. The world is the destiny or the fate of the human. I don't know exactly what she means by that. Ha'olam hu goralo shel ha'adam. The second way to understand it is to say that we are here to fulfill a mission of atonement and repair. The world is the place of our atoning. Every kol michshol, every place of stumbling is an opportunity for repair. And that's the place in which we can serve God with the avodat Hashem hanechona, the true service of God. The world is the human's destiny, or I guess that's the comparison between the two. Ha'olam hu goralo shel ha'adam, the world is man's kind of fate, versus the world is man's destiny. So it's kind of, I think, a beautiful, powerful framework for two ways of thinking about the departure from Gan Eden, and if given that that's our reality, do we view it always as this ongoing punishment and distancing, or as this being sent into this world post Gan Eden as a world of opportunity and possibility for repair and fixing? Questions or comments before we wrap up? Dad, please.
Just to follow up on the question about Cain not knowing about death. The sacrifice that he brought was fruit or vegetables. Hevel brought an animal. An animal as a sacrifice, you have to kill it. So Cain didn't know about that. He was not that type of sacrifice.
Wow, beautiful insight, right? In what they each had to do to offer their offering to God. Beautiful, beautiful. David L., you're unmuted. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that if you had written it, or you had been her editor and added the word hizdamnut, that it was an opportunity in the second piece. That was what you added in your translation.
Yes.
It reads much in a much more compelling manner.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what she means when she talks about destiny here as seemingly the conclusion of the second alternative.
Mm-hmm. Just pulling it open again. Right. Here she says kol michshol who he's damnut letikun. That's her word
I
there.
see.
But right, it's not how she describes the whole world, but sort of inside the world, whenever we stumble, it's an opportunity to repair. Yeah, there's maybe some imprecision or ambiguity there. Yeah. More to think about.
Maybe they're somehow tied together, though, that Adam has to now perfect the earth and literally the soil
Mm-hmm.
by working it.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess a metaphor for the world as a community.
Nice. I think I appreciate sort of, I think for a big takeaway for me is just even offering the framework of thinking about, not seeing the story in isolation as something that happened to Adam, but obviously this is the frame for Bereshit in general, but if this happened to Adam, then it means we're all now living in this world, and what does that mean for us? And what is the framework of the living in the shadow of our first humans having had to leave, been sent out of the original and maybe originally eternally intended place. What does that mean for us? That is our world, and these sort of two different frames of how to think about it. So, yeah, it certainly feels of the moment in a time that feels mostly like the first vision, just choshech and salmavet. I'm not sure whether the frame of opportunities for repair is exactly the right frame in this moment, but something about moving between just the acknowledging the darkness for what it is and thinking about what fixing there can be feels resonant to me right now. So
Groping around in the darkness is
yeah. Thanks for beginning the journey of the Torah again, and with Rabbanit Dr. Michal Tikochinsky, and with all of you, and looking forward to continuing. Thanks to all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Be well.
Laila Tov.